Well, in the beginning of organized sports, there was the Olympics. The Olympics were a male-dominated sport. There was blood, there was brute, and there was a little bit of nudity. Women were not invited to participate. In modern-day sports, they're still dominated by men. Have you ever seen a men's restroom line longer than a women's? Not very often, but you do at a sporting event. At these sporting events, there's still blood, there's brute, and yes, there's still some nudity. So have you ever been in a conversation and the topic of sports comes up, and you kind of slowly exit stage left? I have. So why am I standing up here with you today, talking to you about making sports your secret weapon? Well, because it works. And how do I know that? Because in my day job, I help those who don't know a lot about sports join the conversation. But let's be honest, I wasn't always so sports savvy. I grew up in a household with a little brother who played every single sport imaginable. I had no choice but to be supportive and learn about rugby and roller hockey and basketball and soccer and baseball and football, and it goes on and on. I, on the other hand, was a dancer. I don't have an athletic bone in my body. My one season of soccer consisted of being kicked in the face and a lot of tears. But don't worry, all that sports knowledge wasn't learned in vain. It came in handy when I began my career in professional sports. Now, I don't know a lot about every sport, but I know a little about a lot, and that gets me through the day. So let me tell you a little story. One of our readers, she works in an office with a bunch of guys who talk more about sports than they do about work. I'm pretty sure you guys have all been in one of those places before. Well, she felt left out, and she wanted to join in on the conversation. So she started paying attention to the trending topics in sports. So one day, they're sitting around, and she says to the guys, "Hey, did you see that big game last night?" And they looked at her like she had 8 heads. They had no idea she knew anything about sports. And she shrugged it off like, "Hey, I've had this sports knowledge the whole time." So tell me why we expect women to know nothing about sports. Well, it's probably the same reason how people always ask me about how having a child will affect my career, but no one asks my husband the same question. Stereotyping. Now, I'm not here to pretend that there aren't women out there who know a lot about sports, because I know there are a lot of men who don't. But for the sake of today, ladies, I'm going to talk to you. Now, I'm not here to encourage you to conform to a man's world, but we can't pretend that gender bias don't exist. In her book, Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg talks about how we need to make the best of the current situation instead of trying to change its fundamentals. So there's a reason you see women out with their male colleagues at a bar drinking whiskey and smoking cigars. Well, because whether we like it or not, you have to be at the table to play. We're surrounded by sports. In fact, in 2016, more people filled out an NCAA March Madness bracket than voted for one single candidate in U.S. election history. Now think about that for a second. Don't worry, this isn't where I go on my political tirade about the election, but just think about that. More people can agree on basketball than they can on a president. So why not capitalize on that conversation? I mean, we even pay our athletes more than we pay some of the most important people in our country. And think about it, sports are everywhere in our world. We have Tom and Giselle. Justin Timberlake owns part of an NBA basketball team. Meryl Streep and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is a Supreme Court justice, well, they were cheerleaders. And NBA superstar LeBron James, well, he was in the movie Trainwreck. We pay our athletes very well. In fact, sometimes more than what we pay those who are really important in our country. NFL rookies make $50,000 a year, more than the designated salary for the U.S. president. New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady, well, he makes 202 times the average Massachusetts teacher salary. Now, it's really great for him because he's playing in the Super Bowl next weekend. But think about it. We're standing here in an educational institution, so I'm pretty sure that we can all agree that teachers are kind of important. So talking about sports isn't that hard, I promise you. You don't have to know everything. Just knowing a little bit will help you understand and dive into the conversation. I have 3 tips for you to help join the conversation at the office, in the classroom, or even on a date. And don't worry, we're not going to cover statistics on passing yards or wins or losses. I'm not teaching a math class here. We've all been in that conversation where someone goes on a tirade about the 1972 Super Bowl team or their favorite team, the Boston Red Sox, and your eyes glaze over and you start to think about, what am I going to do tonight? What do I need to pick up from the grocery store? It's painful. Those people are really just showing off their sports knowledge, and the trick is to know when to chime in. Did they talk about a team you know, or a team that's in a city that you love to visit? You don't have to know about statistics about passing yards or wins or losses to be able to chime in. Simply saying, hey, who are you rooting for? Or how's that team doing this year will go a really long way. Following sports doesn't have to be intimidating. Get a fun, non-intimidating perspective on sports by following a sports network like ESPN or the Bleacher Report, or a sports team, or their cheerleaders or their mascots on social media. You might learn a thing or two, and besides, who doesn't love an insight to a billion-dollar industry as sports? Follow your boss or your coworker's favorite team on Instagram. You're going to receive brownie points for knowing whether to congratulate them or console them the next day after a big game. And it may not seem like it, but talking about sports is, in fact, a team sport. Have you ever been in a sports bar where someone's team wins? Everybody's celebrating, high fives are everywhere. It doesn't matter who you are. If you have a hand, you get a high five. Well, talking about sports is the same way. Those who know a lot about sports are really happy to answer your questions without judgment. I wouldn't know what I know today if it wasn't for my little brother. I still call him all the time with questions about what's happening in the wide world of sports. Those who know a lot about sports are really happy to share. And if all else fails and things get really awkward and you get in a bind, go ahead and break out your touchdown dance. In our careers where office parties and business lunches are ever present, it's really important to know a wide variety of topics. While I understand that you may have no desire and may not like sports, just remember knowing that is a little extra trick up your sleeve. Expanding your horizons to the world of sports can really help you fill those awkward silences. I've had people tell me how just knowing a little bit about sports has helped them join that conversation when they're waiting for a meeting to start, or when they're at a networking event. It gives them something else to talk to someone about. But better yet, it gives them something to talk about at home. They now have something to talk about to their roommates, their spouse, or their children. Now let me tell you how sports has helped me. A couple of years ago, I pitched a client on some marketing work, and he wanted to talk about it over lunch. Well, I was really nervous because I didn't know what we had in common. What were we going to talk about for an entire lunch? This could be really painful. So during our small talk, he mentioned that he plays golf. And I'll be honest, I don't know the first thing about golf. I'm a terrible golf player. But the one thing I do know is how to yell, "4!" when you're going to hit somebody in the head with a golf ball. And so also, luckily that morning, we had written about the Masters golf tournament. So I said to him in conversation, "Hey, did you know that they pipe bird music into the broadcast of the golf tournament so it seems like a more natural environment for the viewers? But there actually aren't any birds at the golf course." And that was a great jumping off point for us in our conversation. I understand that going into a new topic like sports, can be really challenging, and it could be nerve-wracking. But try it. Try it today during the break, or try it tonight at Ocon's. Take risks, challenge yourself, join the conversation. It's a choice you won't regret, and you'll hit a home run every time. Thank you. Thank you.